Are we live?
And we are recording now.
Okay, well, I'm going to share my screen and start. And again, if there's any technical difficulties, give me a no. I got a chat window up here, so I'm hoping I'll be able to see that as we're going here. So again, you know, kind of best thing, if I had two things I wanted to do today, one is to convince everybody how cool the rover, the new Perseverance rover is on Mars. And my second goal today is to convince you how big SpaceX's Starship is. But here's kind of one of the first panoramas that came down, and then this little rectangle here is enlarged to show what's called the Harbor Seal Rock. And it's just a cool thing. You know, if you think about Mars dust having the consistency of talcum powder, you wouldn't think talcum powder could weather rocks like this. But I guess if you got something blowing for 3 billion years, just about, you know, anything can happen. So it's just amazing to see. So how's that coming through on your end, guys? Everybody doing okay?
Looks
Good.
good.
Okay. So next thing here is, let's see, tab. Here's my arch nemesis.
Oh, you got pretty far on that.
Yeah, I'm 2/3 away after about 10 days.
That is cool. Where'd you get it?
I got it from the shop place of Astronomy magazine. You know, remember I got this astronaut in a box for younger kids. The same place sells this 1,000-piece puzzle of the moon, and I have a 500-piece puzzle of Pluto too. And when I announced it, Harry had the joke of, "Don't mix the two up," you know.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All week long I've had to limit myself because it just drives my back and my neck bonkers doing that. But today's my first day without Tylenol, so I must be coping.
Good.
Either that or I'm developing puzzle back. So Perseverance is our rover, and here's the homepage for Perseverance. It's Sol 35 today. Remember, a Sol is a Martian day, and it's 40 minutes longer than an Earth day. So if you're a rover driver, you have to go on Sols rather than Earth days because, you know, JPL, where it's managed out of, they control the rover, and then in the morning of Mars is when it gets its new program. And they make the rover do all the stuff during the Martian day because the Martian night is just so cold, things probably wouldn't work that well. So everybody has to go through this cycle. It's about maybe about a 40-day cycle where your start time changes 40 minutes each day. And I guess it's pretty grueling, so you can't have people on it too much. So got some interesting raw images here. We'll see what's out there today. Looks like more engineering pictures of various parts of the rover. But then, you know, you'll get some cool pictures of rocks and things like that. So, so it's just a great site. I recommend it highly to get any information you want about the rover. You know, another thing too, I wanted, and Dean's an expert on this, but to show you how rovers have changed through the days here. Here was the original Sojourner rover.
Yes, it is.
And on the left here was the Spirit and Opportunity size rovers.
Yeah, those are the two that I worked on.
Okay. And then here is the Perseverance rover and Curiosities that's been there for a few years is the same size. They're kind of the size of a Fiat car or a small compact car. And I'll be kind of curious. I haven't heard whether, whether the rover that's still orbiting from China, whether it's going to be this size or this size. I know it's not going to be this size, but
It's probably more towards Sojourner,
yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be this size here. So
because they're doing the same thing they did on the moon. They're going to have a base landing, and all the communications will be through the base that lands,
Right.
just like Sojo did.
now these the Spirit and Opportunity came down on the airbags and bounced, right?
Right. So did Sojo.
And Sojourner too?
Right.
Okay. And these are the two rovers that did the exciting sky crane maneuvers.
Yeah, which is phenomenal, especially when we saw the videos.
Right. These things are getting up over a metric ton, so they're 2,200 plus pounds. So we'll see. I think the sky crane doesn't have a lot more mass in it, so the next thing we try, if we get bigger than this, we'll have to have another way of doing it. Okay. JPL had a great news conference. I just wanted to show a little bit about the now, they're following a tradition here of naming the rover landing sites after science fiction writers. Octavia E. Butler was a science fiction writer. And Curiosity, they named it Bradbury, I think, Ray Bradbury landing area.
And Sojourner and Pathfinder was Carl Sagan.
Ah, okay. And Sagan did some science fiction.
Yeah, they did. They named the Pathfinder landing site Carl Sagan's.
Okay. So the yellow star is where it landed. I think they were trying to get as close to these cliffs here as possible, but the automated system put them down over here. So it's not going to be problematic. They still are pretty close. So that's really, I think, all I wanted to say about this. It was a great picture of the landing area. So
Still amazing, the technology of navigation at going at that speed.
Right. So maybe just, I got more pictures up here than websites, but out of the first panorama, I made this snapshot of like a mesa that is like a harder rock than the surrounding rock. Apparently, the delta was all up at this upper height, and the wind over the billions of years has weathered the side stuff, but this one little area here hasn't. And that sure looks like Arizona and New Mexico and things like that.
Sure.
To me.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then here's a picture of the first tracks. You can tell the rover has a newer type of tread on its wheels that's theoretically going to hold up better to some of the sharp rocks. And for all their interesting sites, they're going to use the Navajo language to name their rocks and things like that. I don't know, with asteroids being called how do you pronounce it? Oumuamua. Using all these older languages and things like that is just making it harder and harder to spell and
Pronounce.
remember all these
I
spots.
think they
but,
do that on purpose.
Yeah, there could be. But I guess this way we'll keep it secret from the Japanese if we use Navajo, right? Wasn't that the code breakers in World War II? How we
Yeah.
exchanged our military signals with the ships.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, indeed.
And then this, again, the white dot here shows the landing area, and they've got a blue northern counterclockwise route, which looks maybe the shorter of the two, and then a purple southern route here. And then they would follow the yellow path to wherever they're going to go when they start climbing out of the crater and going up this wall where a river made a river delta here. So they won't know which of these routes they take until they maybe get information from their helicopter. So that'll be an interesting time. So let me see what else I had about Perseverance.
Do they
Go
have a
get trapped.
helicopter flight plan yet?
Well, that's going to be at April is going to be Ingenuity month. They only think the helicopter is going to last maybe at most 40 days from now. So pretty much everything with the helicopter is going to happen in April. And let me show you the helicopter site here. This shows the helicopter underneath the belly of Perseverance. They dropped this pan that protected it during landing. And I think April 8th is going to be when they plan to do their first flight. So we're probably only maybe a week and a half away. And this will be a little bit maybe what the first flight looks like.
that's great animation.
Now, the cool thing is Perseverance will be taking a movie of Ingenuity, and Ingenuity will be taking a picture of Perseverance, a movie of Perseverance.
It weighs 4 pounds.
Yeah.
Looks like a three wood golf club for the legs.
Alan Shepard did that on Apollo 14.
Can you imagine being in the crew that worked on that thing, just biting their fingernails off, waiting for that thing to actually go?
And we were doing that, just having a Pathfinder and Spirit and Opportunity land. That's why I'm like this still, taking that long to.
And now Ingenuity is really a high risk, just technology demonstration. It's not really a core science plan or anything like that of the rover. It was developed very quickly and very kind of recently. It really was only an $80 million project. To show you how recent the hardware is on the helicopter, the computer on Ingenuity is 150 times faster than the rover's computer.
Wow.
So, the rover's computer had to be picked like 10 years ago, radiation hardened, cold hardened, tested in space. Ingenuity is something they just kind of cobbled together with like cell phone parts and things like that. And that's why it really only has the 40-day warranty. It's not really that cold hardened.
They're just doing it for proof of concept.
Right.
For concept for aerodynamics, right?
Yeah.
Right. And, to kind of show that this is the first powered flight on another celestial body. JPL got a postage stamp piece of the fabric from the wing of the Wright brothers airplane
Right.
and put it underneath the solar panels. So there'll be a bit of the Wright brothers plane when this thing tries to do its first flight.
First flight on Earth, and this is the first flight on Mars. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then they even named the spot where they picked out a fairly flat area here. This little
Airfield.
yeah, this little square here is called the airfield. And this pill-shaped thing is where they want to keep the flyer. And there's actually a guy designated as the Ingenuity pilot. And his name is Harvard. Now, I cannot pronounce his middle name. It's spelled F-J, a letter that is A and E combined, and R. And his last name is Grip, G-R-I-P. So
Wow.
obviously, I think he's of Scandinavian descent. But it's just be real interesting. Again, the first flight, maybe on April 8th, is only going to be go up 3 meters, which is about 10, 11 feet, hover for 30 seconds, and then come right back down. And then they'll have to have Ingenuity kind of recharge its batteries. I don't know if it can do multiple flights within a sol. And it definitely needs a charge to fight against the cold of the Mars night. So that's why when when Perseverance drops Ingenuity onto the surface, there's a 25-hour limit that Perseverance has to drive off the top and get Ingenuity in the sun, or it'll freeze that night. So things will be timed pretty precisely.
It'll be exciting to see, that's for sure.
Yeah. So again, they're hoping for like 5 demonstration flights. They might never get more than about 5 meters high because I think the altimeter is laser based and kind of has this 5 meter or 16, 18 feet height limit on it. It's, again, it was an amazing thing to be able to develop so quickly. And a lot of NASA centers worked on it. Like Dean says, it only weighs 4 pounds, and just amazing. So let's see what else we got. Again, if Ingenuity works, we've got another powered flight program coming down the road sometime called Dragonfly. And that's actually going to be a powered thing sent to Titan, the moon of Saturn. And the one nice thing about Titan is its atmosphere is actually thicker than Earth. So, Dragonfly effectively will have an easier time. And if you look at it here, let me just show you just a little bit of their thing. It's going to come down on a chute because Titan has a nice thick atmosphere. And then they're going to drop it, and it's a quadcopter. And it's, I think, nuclear powered.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, those pictures from Huygens really made it inviting to Titan, from Cassini. Just amazing.
Yeah, with that atmosphere, it's going to be an interesting spot in the solar system, I guess, to investigate. And with the liquid methane on the surface, it's got all kinds of possibilities. So very, very, very interesting. Now we're going to have a little bit of wait for Dragonfly. I think it's supposed to launch maybe in 2026, and it might not get to Saturn until about 2034. So we'll have to keep our fingers crossed that, keeps rolling on. Okay, next here, I just wanted to say again, remember, Perseverance is the first step of trying to get samples back. It's supposed to take, maybe up to 40 cores and cache them somewhere on the surface. And then there's going to be a mission sent to, can I ask, do you guys see this chat and participants windows on my screen, on your screens?
I've got myself, I've got you, and
You don't see something floating in front of the rocket here, do you?
no,
Okay,
No,
I just wanted to make sure, that it's something that's only on my window and not blocking stuff for you guys.
Yeah, I do, but I'm a co-admin, so
What was that, Keith?
I'm your co-host, so I can see what you see.
Ah, okay. So that's not too distracting for you, is it?
No, it's fine.
Okay. But Northrop Grumman just got a contract to start developing this rocket. They'd have this unit land on the surface. It would have a little, like, I think bigger than Sojourner, but maybe smaller than Spirit and Opportunity drive off.
I was gonna say
And-
Patriot technology already. Looks like it's launching.
Yeah, and then Northrop Grumman would have this little solid fuel rocket that would take the core samples back up to Mars orbit, and that would dock with an orbiter up there, and then that orbiter would send it back to the Earth for return of the core samples from what Perseverance has.
wouldn't you love to be a fly and watch all that happen, huh? It's
Yeah.
just amazing. That's great
So-
technology.
Yeah, very complicated. It's going to have a lot of funding, but we'll see how it does over the years here. And again, just to mention we've got the Hope orbiter in orbit around Mars from the United Arab Emirates, and I think it's just kind of gotten into its science orbit, so that it's going to be able to, it's almost like a weather satellite now around Mars. It's going to study, I think it might be in a sun synchronous orbit over Mars, so it'll be able to study weather patterns and things like that, see how the Mars atmosphere is interacting with space, and be just another great asset to have around there. And China's still in orbit. I think it's going to be summer when they try to actually do the landing and deploy their rover. And we'll see how they do. China's just got a lot of irons in the fire. Their rover on the far side of the moon is still operating. So, they're coming along pretty fast.
And they're building their space station also,
Yes.
which is pretty far in advance of being sent also. They first have to develop their heavy booster though, and they've been testing that also.
Right. So, yeah, China's moving. So anything more anybody wants to say about the rovers or Mars, or
We're good.
we're all good? Okay. See how we're doing on time. 8 o'clock. Excellent. Well, the other great thing that happened, NASA did a successful green run test
That was amazing.
on their second try. So 800 seconds, or no, is it 800 seconds?
that's what it says on the
I
screen.
think it was 500 seconds, a full 8 minutes and 20 seconds there. So ignore my slide here. But
Just amazing. The
Yeah,
power.
yeah, here's the 4 shuttle engines that'll be the bottom part of the first stage of the core stage of SLS. And again, it was tested down in Stennis, and look at this enormous steam cloud coming out of there from the hydrogen and oxygen. it always kind of makes its own mini rainstorm. And when these engines were gimbaling around, you know,
Yeah,
It was
scared me.
hilarious.
Yeah, you could see them moving all over the place. They were, yeah,
They
right.
were really jiggling. And if you notice in the upper right here, there's a fire above one of the engines.
Right, yeah.
I guess because it's on a kind of a fixed stand, there was some concern about thermal protection of the motors over and above what, you know, this kind of thermal protection wouldn't be on the rocket when it's launched going up through the atmosphere. The heat would be dissipated. So this was just some cork and extra insulation that they had on there, not something to be concerned about. And it just shows the power, how far this stuff shoots out. And you figure that did it for 5 minutes and 20 seconds. So more power to NASA. It's a great thing. Now we've got to take this core module, and they got to do a little prep on it and then put it on a barge and send it to Florida. I think it hopes to arrive in Florida at the end of April. And all the other parts for the first enormous SLS rocket are ready to go. The solid rocket boosters have already been stacked and ready to be added.
I don't know if you can see this. That's a picture of Beth by the firing stand. B2 test stand, that's Beth. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. I had you behind my chat window there. So
Oh,
yeah, Beth was yeah, able to see it. So so good news for SLS. We'll have to see. The other thing is we've got a nominee for NASA administrator, and it is Bill Nelson, the ex-Democratic senator from Florida. You know, some people like him, some people can't stand him.
so what do you
It was
think?
kind of cool when Jim Bridenstine got nominated. Nelson said, "You never should have a politician head NASA." So, so who does Biden nominate? You know, a guy that was nothing but a politician his whole life here.
Hopefully you're the only one, Jim, who remembers that.
and you know, I've seen some. I think he's going to have a fairly easy time because Bridenstine backs him, and even Marco Rubio on the Republican side backs him. It's very hard that you ever get a Republican to say anything nice about anything Biden does. So you know, he might have a fairly easy time getting confirmed. But you know, Lori Garver was quoted as saying that you know, when she was in NASA and he was the senator, they had to really give him SLS funding to get commercial crew money. And it was a real kind of like selling your soul to get, you know, what you need. And, you know, the other thing that he had some pretty good clout to get himself a ride on the space shuttle after he retired from Congress, or I don't know if he was still in Congress at the time, but he had no qualifications other than controlling a lot of NASA funding. So he must have still been in Congress. And the astronauts resented his presence so much, they gave him the nickname of Ballast. And,
Nice.
Nice.
and I've
That's
got
pretty
a picture
appropriate.
of Ballast here. Where is Ballast? Here's Ballast in his younger days. Let's see. There should be a picture of him in a blue jumpsuit somewhere here. Come on, there it is.
Yeah.
So there's Ballast. So if you ever bump into him, if you're touring the NASA Center or something like that, you know, depending on how you think about him, I'm sure if you yell ballast, he'll turn around and and say something.
Yeah, like throw that guy out.
Oh,
So
boy.
let's see, what else do we got here? Okay. One thing, we're talking about SLS having good news, but Biden also established a study to see if SLS can be made a little more cheaply. The problem with SLS is that it's probably going to cost about $2 billion a launch. And that's going to be a tough thing to do. And I don't think there's a plan of launching it more than once a year, which I think sometimes almost you have a hard time keeping competency when you launch that infrequently. But, something I think has to be done to bring down the cost of this rocket. I'd be kind of curious with you guys whether you think SLS or SpaceX's new Starship is going to make it to the moon first.
Why don't we think about it this way first? We had the Saturn V. Okay, how many trips did the shuttle make to produce the International Space Station? 35, 36 shuttle flights? How many flights with the Saturn V would it be to put that amount of cargo in orbit? Okay, maybe 5 flights, 6 flights. I mean, look at the size of the interior of Skylab. That was the enormous third stage was all of Skylab on the Saturn V. Just imagine if you had 4 Skylab space stations hooked together, the amount of volume would be 2.5 times what the ISS is, and you would only have 5 flights. So that's the quandary. Do you want to do commercial crew with 30, 40 flights, or do you want to use SLS anywhere from 6 to 10 flights? The cost is still going to even out that you look at it. So that's what I think.
Yeah, and I think that's true, except, if Starship has almost the same lift to mass as SLS and it only costs 100 million, you could get 20 Starships for every launch of SLS for almost the same mass.
Well, we had the test of SLS and it worked. We're having trouble getting Starship above 5 miles.
Right.
So-
There's a lot of hurdles that Starship has to get through, but yeah, I think SLS better move and better move quickly. Hopefully, even with this delay on the green run, I think NASA still has November of this year as Artemis 1. And remember, Artemis 1 is going to send the Orion capsule.
I think it's 3,000 miles past the moon. It's the farthest that anything we've made that is man-made and capable of handling a crew that far.
True.
So-
I think it's going to kind of maybe do like a big figure 8, like
Yeah.
Apollo 8 did, going past the moon. I saw something pop up from my co-host there. Was anything you wanted to add, Keith?
No, I'm just listening. It's very interesting.
Okay.
And it is basically the same foam that is used for the installation, but the Orion capsule is on top of all of that.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about foam issues.
Right.
And as you can see, the black on the 5 segmented boosters, those are joint heaters. So it keeps the joints above 75 degrees, even in the winter months in Florida. So that's obviously what happened with Challenger was they became crusty in the 30-degree weather and that. So we've learned a lot of lessons. Let it play out, let it be successful, and I think it'll be good for the country.
Yeah, so much of the hardware's been built. I think, we've got to kind of use up that hardware again. Like, I don't want to have it be a lawn item in front of NASA centers, things like that.
Well, they got 3 in production, right, Jim? 3.
At least, yeah.
Yeah,
And
at
I
least
think,
3.
enough engines of these 4 bottom engines for 10 flights of it. You know, and I think, you know, it's just one thing's coming is reusability, you know, with the Falcon 9 being reusable and Falcon Heavy being reusable, and then Starship will be totally reusable. There's really nothing reusable on the SLS. They're not going to try to recover the solid rocket boosters. The big core here is going to kind of burn up in the atmosphere. I think the second stage will probably go into orbit around the sun. So, you know, that's a little bit, you know, what it's going to happen. That even the new single use, you figure 4 shuttle engines will be kind of tossed into the ocean every time this launches. And those new single use engines on the bottom here are costing, I think, 146 million a piece. So you can see that's $500 million just for the engines each flight, and they're just going to wind up at the bottom of the ocean. So
So Bayos can go get one. You got
Yeah.
one already, so we can go back and get another one.
yeah, yep.
So remember when SLS was supposed to be launched, 2013.
Right.
Okay, and that's even before Falcon was landing on its own. So there was really no such talk about reusability at that time, because we were all used to Saturn V's, you know, the Gemini Titans, you just taken off, and you know that's just what it was. NASA was
Right.
throwaway society.
And I know so many design decisions were to just reuse shuttle technology to make it a quick project. You know, the problem is that it didn't become a quick project. It's just kind of gone on and on. So I just hope that it'll be, you know, it'll make sense to use it when it's ready. And I hope it's ready within a couple of years.
Yeah, this test flight has to be successful to keep it on track for funding. If not, we might have issues.
Okay. Well, mentioning keeping things on track, the James Webb Space Telescope is on track for a Halloween launch.
Cool.
October 31st of this year. So they said, you know, that most technical issues are closed out. You know, in an early March presentation, the program scientists said they were wrapping up all the stuff. They have 48 days of schedule margin remaining in their plan. And the telescope is going through final series of deployment tests, and then it'll be shipped to this summer to French Guiana. And really the only thing happening is that there's a movement that they want to rename it from the James Webb Space Telescope, because James Webb, when he worked for the State Department before he was the second NASA administrator, apparently got rid of some LGBTQ employees. And now he's being questioned as whether, you know, we want something this valuable named after him. You know, this new cancel culture we've got going on now, where if you send the wrong tweet when you were in high school, you know, you're going to be banned as a social pariah for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Is just something we've got to stop. I know Biden and NASA, the acting NASA administrator, said he's going to do a study to look into it. And when that study's complete, they'll give their position on it. But I sure hope after all these years of development, they don't step away from the James Webb name. I don't know what you guys think, but yeah.
Well, if everything works, I think they should stick with James Webb. If it all goes to hell, maybe we could change the name then.
Yeah. And of all things to worry about on the James Webb, I never thought we'd be worried about pirates. They don't want to announce the exact date of when they're going to ship it down to French Guiana.
right?
Because they're
Oh,
worried
wow.
that somebody's going to commandeer it and then hold the $10 billion telescope for ransom. So,
That's for a twist.
So do they
Wow.
plan on shipping it and not flying it? It'll fit in a C5A.
it was said that it's too big to fit in a C5A.
Ugh.
So apparently it has to go by sea.
Well, thank God it doesn't have to go through the Suez Canal anyway, right?
Yeah, it's stuck there. What about the Antonov?
Well, I don't know if the Antonov is available, but for some reason they thought air shipment was not an option.
Oh, Russia
So-
probably charge us 90 million to use it.
Yeah.
Just like a seat on the Soyuz.
But I would think we would have things that could escort it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
hopefully-
wouldn't ya?
Submarines and, you
So-
know,
yeah,
That would
hopefully
be a
we'll have
dead giveaway though.
a couple of gunboats there, to protect our $10 billion
Yeah.
story.
Yeah,
And-
it should
and
be
if-
interesting.
If
Ship
you
down
ever
there
do
in an
read this
aircraft
link,
carrier.
there's quite a few instances of telescopes in the 1800s and early 1900s that were like captured, and people had to pay ransom to get it. So apparently it's not that crazy an idea to steal a telescope and then make people pay for you to give it back.
I bet it fit in the flight deck of a carrier though.
Well, so send it down on a Forrestal or
Yeah,
the Nimitz or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah, put it on an aircraft carrier and then surround it with
Everything.
our complete Southern Armada.
yeah. At least you know it was there.
Okay.
Probably
Well-
be a dead giveaway too.
Yeah, well, that's for sure.
Well, I'm gonna change to SpaceX news then. I know, have all you guys seen the Starship launches and crashes? I think we've had 3 of them now, right?
Mhm.
I remember one kind of landed okay, but it exploded. Then one landed almost on its side and exploded. SN10 came down hard and then exploded. So
It was like 4 minutes later, wasn't it?
Yeah,
was
they were
actually-
spraying it down and then all of a sudden kaboom.
it was actually 8 minutes later. It
Oh.
sat there
Yeah,
for
I was
8
I was
minutes.
worried about the trucks coming towards it. I was like,
Yeah, no kidding.
So here's it coming down, and you can kind of see it bounce. They figure it kind of hit the ground at about 25 miles an hour. Part of the problem was on previous landing attempts, some of the engines didn't light. So they lit all 3 engines. That worked okay, and then they powered down to 1. But apparently, one of the earlier explosions, they had trouble with pressure in the fuel tank. So Musk added some helium pressurization tanks for this mission. And apparently the helium got mixed in with the methane fuel
Oh,
and
Yikes.
caused the single engine to not have quite the necessary thrust. So Musk said his bad. He learned his lesson. Now, if you want to see, this is what it looked like while it was sitting there. Everybody was kind of winding down their telecasts, and even if you look at the official SpaceX feed, you won't even see this part. So it's just sitting there. It's sitting there, sitting there. And here it comes. Boom.
Wow.
did they say the
Oh.
cause of that one?
Not that I heard.
Yeah, like Keith said, it's good nobody was on their way to the launch pad and say, hey, look at this. This is great. And then boom.
reminds me
Yeah.
of my brother and me doing fireworks in the backyard. It just didn't work out.
That's something. I was listening to a podcast from the Angry Astronaut, who's a kind of a frequent filer. He's worried about, when they again, these starships that are making these things, that's only the second stage. That's going to go on top of an even bigger first stage. And if that thing blows up down in Boca Chica, I think it could take out a town nearby, kind of like the N1 explosion in Russia. And I just hope we don't have any kind of setback. We'll have to worry. But here's let's see if I can get past the ad.
Hello, it's Scott Manley here. Today, SpaceX down in Boca Chica had another test flight of a Starship prototype. Starship SN-10 took to the skies on its second attempt. The first attempt counted all the way down and aborted at T-minus 0.1 seconds. But later in the day, all the engines took to flight. Now, apparently, the earlier abort was because one engine was producing too much power, and so they had decided to just reset the automatic systems and allow it
Can you
to.
turn it up a little bit?
I don't know if that's relevant, but later on in the flight, when they were down to two engines, it was very obvious that one engine was burning a slightly different color than another one. This would typically indicate that you're perhaps running fuel rich, therefore
That's
you're
great
more
footage.
orange because there's more carbon in the exhaust that's able to emit black body radiation. Other than that, everything went as it has before, right down to the vehicle getting as high as it would at 420 before turning off its engines. From here, it transitions into the horizontal skydive orientation. You get a great view of that square area of thermal protection. Tiles are being tested. Obviously, they're not needed at these velocities, but they do want to make sure they stay attached because it would suck to lose them at orbital speeds. And again, they demonstrated that the vehicle could maintain control in the horizontal orientation. But what they really wanted to do was demonstrate that it would be able to land. The previous two have failed for various reasons. This time, the plan was to light up 3 engines in quick succession and then shut them down, relieving only one. So you'll see that all 3 lit and then 2 shut down very quickly, leaving 1 to perform the landing. Now, we'll talk about that fire later. The great thing is it did actually slow down and put itself on the pad, although not as gently as it would like. If you looked very carefully there, you might have seen a bit of a bounce. But this was a massive success, the first real demonstration of Starship's landing maneuver. There were a lot of doubts about whether this would be controllable, whether they could put it on target. And yeah, we saw it on the 3rd attempt, albeit not perfect. There's a bit of fire going on there. Something possibly got damaged. And sure, I'm sure the people were starting to celebrate. And of course, the SpaceX webcast finished before we got to see what happens next. But of course, SpaceX weren't the only people pointing cameras at this. There were rocket watchers who had come from all over the country. And Everyday Astronaut was in the process of winding up his broadcast, thanking everybody out there when this happened.
Oh, watch this.
I can't believe that. We need to start dumping footage, shall we? We need to start dumping footage. Oh, God, it blew up. It just blew up. It just blew up. What?
I've seen data servers do that, I think, in a data center a few times.
What?
Is it me or does that rocket look like it was from like Flesh Gordon or something, you know?
Oh,
Pretty
yeah.
cool
The
design though.
physical characteristics of it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what did just...
So I thought you'd enjoy that. But again, it's a whole industry down in Boca Chica to watch these SpaceX tests. You know, I've never seen a rocket developed out in the open like this. And you know, if you're wondering, because that rocket's flipping around and landing and doing all different kind of orientations, it's got a much more complex plumbing system than you might think. I've got a short little video here that shows some of the internals of what's going on.
Well, Boca
Oh, that's
is
cool.
a mouth, right? In Spanish. And chica is a girl.
I think so.
Yeah, that's pretty cool video.
So
an
why is
interesting-
that belly flop maneuver so important?
You know, belly flap is to keep it kind of using the wind resistance as much as possible to slow down rather than fuel.
Because it'll be entering the Earth's atmosphere like that. That's why you
Yeah.
had that square piece of material to test for the heat shield, though it didn't need it at that altitude, but he had it there.
Yeah, it's going to come in from orbit like the shuttle.
Right.
You know, it's not going to use those wings as flight things, but at least to slow it down.
So are they using the same design and strategy for Mars?
Yes.
Because the atmosphere is a lot thinner, right, Dean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But
That's a
still
cool video.
produces the heat, though. Yeah, that's pretty cool video.
Yeah.
You see how they use the header tank kind of for the, you know, after it comes out of this belly flap thing, you know, you can't have your fuel all sloshing around in a big tank. So that's why you have this header tank to do the landing burn. And it's just a lot more complicated than it looks like looking at it.
Yeah, it looks clumsy.
Plus, they're the new engines, too. They're the Raptor. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, again, you know, this is the first, you know, flight worthy methane liquid oxygen engine ever developed. And, you know, again, it is partly for Mars because they believe you can make methane at Mars. That's why they're using that kind of fuel. Starship could land on Mars and then actually have fuel made for it to refuel it up, and it could make it back to Earth just as that second stage. So I wanted to show you a little bit the status of prototypes. Again, SN11 was almost launching today. If you look, here's SN11. It shows here only one cryo proof. It's already done 2 more static fires since this March 13th. He has a SN15, a SN16, SN17, SN18, 19, and 20 already in the works. And then this is the first stage. The Starship would fit on top of this BN1. Now, the BN1 is not going to be a flight-worthy first stage. It's just kind of him testing out stacking and how he would maneuver this. Because again, he's got to haul this on a road, you know, down in Boca Chica, Texas, and try it out. So I think BN2 is going to be the first stage that's going to fly. Musk has said that this rocket will go orbital by July of this year.
Oh, boy.
Nobody believes him.
Oh,
Nobody believes him, but you know, I know Gwen Shotwell, her kind of the number 2 at SpaceX, said that it's going to go orbital this year. I kind of believe him.
That's why his employees are doing 80 hours overtime.
Yeah,
That was always the complaint when you try to, and you look at the people that have left Elon Musk and all that, there's just the overtime is a killer.
and let me show you to kind of appreciate the size of it. This is a picture of the grid fins for the BN1
Jeez,
versus the grid fins on the Falcon 9.
they're still huge. Either way you look at it.
And here's a banana for size.
And
here's a person. Yeah. So just imagine these grid fins are, what would steer the first stage through the atmosphere back down so that it could be reused.
Just amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And here's just a little comparison rockets size-wise. Here would be the first stage. Here's the Starship second stage, comparing it to the cargo SLS and the Orion capsule SLS. Here's the N1 rocket. I think 5 launches, 5 failures when Russia was still trying to get to the moon. Here's the Saturn V.
It's
and then
pretty
here's,
impressive,
like,
that's for sure.
what's that?
It is pretty impressive, that's for sure.
Yeah, and here's a Falcon Heavy. If you wanted to know what a Falcon 9 looks like, it would be just the center core would be the same as a Falcon 9. And some other statistics, I think this total rocket here, fully fueled, would weigh in as 5,000 metric tons. So that's 5 million kilograms, which is maybe 11 million pounds.
And that's 32 Raptor engines?
It's going to be 28 Raptor
Oh,
engines
28
on the
Raptor.
bottom and then 6 on the Starship. Remember, the N1, I think, had 30 engines.
That's what yeah.
And so then again, so we're talking about a 5,000 metric tons. I was trying to compare to a Saturn V. I think a Saturn V weighed just under 3,000 metric tons. And like the space shuttle stack, fully fueled, weighed a little over 2,000 metric tons. So, you're talking about things, maybe twice as heavy as a Saturn V. So that's why you can imagine when this thing is fully fueled with liquid methane and oxygen, what an explosion it could be. And Boca Chica is not that far from the SpaceX facility. We're going to have to see whether, he's already bought a couple of oil rigs to launch these things possibly from sea. But I think the logistics of trying to fuel it and stabilize it, even
Yeah.
on an oil rig, might be
Oh,
pretty tough.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. It's going to be an interesting race to see, what's going to be powering the next decade of stuff.
Hey, Jim, do you think the race changes now that isn't China and Russia supposed to be collaborating?
Yep.
I think it will too.
I've kind of got that on my next slide here, so I'll table that. But yeah, we'll have to see. The other thing going on, again, the Starship. There's a Dear Moon project where this Japanese billionaire is buying a trip from SpaceX, and he's going to take 8 people with him. And he started a contest where you can put your names in and see if you'll be selected. Beth has put her name in, and she actually got an email back from this billionaire. At least his name was on the email, but then she looked and said there was a lot of misspellings, and I think it was like a Nigerian email address or something. So
Oh, no.
yeah, so watch out. If you enter, you might get hacked.
Oh, no.
But he's supposed to take him and his group for circumnavigate the moon. I think it's still planned for 2023. A week-long voyage on that Starship. And I'm kind of curious if his flight is going to occur before Artemis 3, which would be the first time US astronauts get to land on the moon. Artemis 2, I think, will have people on it, but again, that'll just circumnavigate. Well, I guess we'll have to see whether this flight, Dear Moon, happens before Artemis 2. That would be a fair comparison. Both are going to try to circumnavigate the moon. So we'll have to see who's first.
Right.
We're
It'd
off
be
to a
nice
pretty
to have them
slow
both go
start.
at the same time.
Yeah,
That'd
yeah.
be nice.
You know, Artemis, I think, would have, I don't know on their first manned one if they're going to have a full crew of 4 or if they'll have a smaller crew. But, you know, again, it would be maybe about 8 people or more on the Starship. So we'll have to see if it works.
Yeah, I read a blurb on Space News, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, that it's most likely that the landing will be pushed back to the original date, 2028.
And that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'd rather do it in a controlled, reasonable way. And, you know, again, we're trying to go back sustainably and
right.
not just do a flag and be gone. So I think I've given you, do you guys feel like you have a little bit of idea how big this Starship is going to be?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The other space news topic was just the Starlink count is going up and up and up. And SpaceX just kind of launched a rocket for the 9th time and recovered it. So they're closely approaching their goal of using the core stage of a Falcon 9 10 times before it has to be, you know, undergo major refurbishment. And
It's incredible.
Only private industry, or I should say probably figures that it's Elon Musk. So
right.
it's amazing.
And actually Starlink 22 launch occurred this last Wednesday, and that happened on the 15th anniversary of the first failed Falcon 1 launch.
Wow.
So you figure in 15 years, he's gone from his first failed Falcon 1 to putting up 60 communication satellites every 2 weeks.
And a manned craft.
Yeah,
And,
and a manned craft.
And a cargo craft. Yeah, that's a lot of less red tape with the private industry than government wise.
Yeah, we're up to 1,308 production Starlink satellites now in orbit, and he's probably only a couple hundred satellites from a full Starlink internet from space system.
Got 3
And-
launches in April,
Yes, right.
Amazing.
You know,
maybe 4. Yeah, I think 4.
yeah, it's
That's crazy.
It's every other week, and the thing is, last year, 2020, SpaceX put up 2 times the mass of the rest of the world in orbit.
Wow.
And in 2021, Musk says that they're going to put up 3 to 4 times the rest of the world in launch mass. So that's counting China, Russia, Europe, the rest of the American launch program. SpaceX is beating them by a factor of 2 last year and maybe a factor of 3 or 4 next year.
So, yeah, this is interesting talking about that. I mean, we've got China developing a heavy lift booster, and the way their program is going, they'll do it, you know. And then I think India just mentioned they're going to put their astronaut on the moon by 2030, between 2030 and 2034. So that's amazing. But I haven't heard anything about a heavy lift booster for Russia. So that's probably why they got together with China to think about this cooperative effort on the moon, because Russia then has a booster they don't have to design and build for heavy lift. Let China do it.
That could be, yeah. That's, you know, I think Russia and China are going to be a formidable kind of opponent there if they decide to go their own way.
Good, it'll fuel the SLS.
So looking at the Starlink framework and dynamic of the purpose that it serves, that is providing internet worldwide, and our culture, because of the COVID situation, is actually changing the paradigm of how we work. They're predicting 2/3 of the workforce beyond this year to continue to work from home for good.
Yeah.
They're going to need now more than ever internet connectivity that's at least minimally robust, if you will, and in areas that aren't being provided today. And I honestly think in our lifetime, we will start seeing, because of this forward thinking, trillionaires to come out of all this in the marketplace, because it's amazing that they were able to forecast something like this and invest like this to have this kind of program.
Yeah, you know, Musk says that he's thinking he's going to be able to get 10 times more earnings from his Starlink system than he does from SpaceX rocket business.
That's crazy.
That let's see how many billion did he think he'd need? I'm looking, I know I had it somewhere, but I think he's thinking he might get 30 billion a year from Starlink, and he only makes about 3 billion a year from his Falcon 9 launches and things like that.
That's
Yeah, I mean, look
insane.
at what they're going to charge you for that 5G, you know?
Mhm.
You know you're going to get whacked.
It's
You know,
reoccurring.
The interesting thing is I haven't seen any Starlink satellites recently. I know they've done a few mitigation things to make them a little dimmer. You know, the astronomers are just so worried with SpaceX putting up 10,000 satellites. Europe wants to put up 7,000 satellites for its own internet system. And then I think there's a third competing one from Amazon. They want to send up thousands of satellites for a third internet from space. And I guess whatever is good news for astronomers is bad news for satellite watchers, because I still remember Carol and I seeing a stream of about 10 Starlinks go kind of racing by a year or so back, and it was so cool. But
Yeah,
you know,
Laura
now-
saw it also. It was pretty, she said it was incredible. The only
Yeah.
thing I saw was when the shuttle was approaching the ISS and you saw two bright
Oh.
dots going across the sky. That was pretty impressive in itself.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah.
I still remember one night too, I saw the ISS cross one way and then the Chinese space station kind of cross
Oh, wow.
another way.
Wow.
That was wild.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah, what
thought-
are the chances of seeing that, especially with Chicago weather? That's great.
And we were just kind of walking on the prairie path, and I got my phone on him, and I'd say, you know what that is? So it was not even a planned anything.
Wow, how great is that?
Yeah. I remember asking you, Jim, like the next day, I was like, you know, we saw it. And we're like, what the heck was that? Because we didn't know.
Was that the Starlinks?
Yeah.
No, the ISS and
Oh.
Yeah.
the other one coming right behind it.
Oh, yeah. When it was, when you'd see the Dragon or Cygnus capsule kind of catching up to it, that was
Yeah.
always a cool thing. Well, speaking of the ISS, I'll move on to the next launch up to the ISS is going to be 2 cosmonauts and this gentleman here, Mark Vande Hei. They actually, Russia didn't announce, or NASA didn't announce that he was going up until less than a month before the launch, which is scheduled for, I think, maybe April 5th or something. And the reason why is, you know, Russia, like Dean said, they're kind of balking at the trade of seats, where we would fly a cosmonaut on Dragon, they would fly an American on Soyuz. You know, Russia is really missing their 80 or 90 million dollars that we were paying to fly our astronauts.
That's probably why they can't build a heavy lift booster.
Yeah, yeah. So you know, it's just, you know, the gamesmanship that comes out of Russia sometimes. Really, you know, it's almost like dealing with a 5-year-old, I think. Uh, you know, when they were showing pictures of the cosmonauts, it actually had this guy's name on their uniforms, and Russia still wasn't acknowledging that he had a seat on that capsule. So it's like, who knows what's going on. Now, the interesting thing is he might actually get to spend a year in space to kind of give uh, Scott Kelly's record for the
Wow.
US a run for the money. And the reason why is the Russians on the next Soyuz are going to send up 2 space tourists. They're sending up a Russian actress and her film director to shoot a movie on the space station. Now, have you guys ever heard that the US was launching somebody?
Yeah, where's Tom Cruise when you need him?
Right. You know,
Yeah.
so again, the Russians are acting like 5-year-olds to me. You know, they don't want the US to film the first movie on the space station. They're going to try to get their people up there 6 months before we do. And the fact that when you send space tourists up on a Soyuz will probably be coming down in a week rather than staying for 6 months. So that's why he'll wind up there probably having to skip a Soyuz and come down on a later one.
So are they only allowed in the Russian segment?
You know, that'll be the interesting thing, you know, and, you know, is the Russia going to make sure they provide all the air and food and bathroom facilities? And, you know, is Russia, you know, can the US charge them a little bit for using Russia, you know, American facilities? I'd
So
sure hate
when are
to have
they
her float and damage something, but
when are they supposed to get rid of the Poisk module and replace that? That's coming up pretty soon.
right. Yeah, there's going to be some replacements there. And I know that's a module that's been in the works for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Well, they were charging 15,000 a pound or something, weren't they? To the US, maybe we could reciprocate now.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So interesting thing here. We'll see if, you know, I know NASA wants to send about 10 of our astronauts up for about a year to kind of help with understanding more long-term flights for when we start sending people to Mars or longer flights to the moon and things like that. So, you know, it's something we want to do, but it's just amazing how it's being done kind of short notice. Here's what Dean and I think Keith were talking about. Russia turns away from NASA and says it'll work with China on a moon base. Now, information is real sketchy. They don't talk about whether this is in orbit around the moon, on the surface of the moon, or when. It's just that the two of them signed a memorandum of understanding. So, you know, Russia has criticized NASA for the Artemis Accords being too US centric. And I think the whole Artemis program, Russia says, is too US centric, but they don't really say what that means. You
Well,
know,
they don't have a heavy lift booster. That's the big thing.
yeah,
I mean, they were asked. I mean, Bridenstine said, "You're more than welcome. You know,
Yeah.
we can do this," but you know, they're going to be 5 years old, like you said, Jim, and they're going to pout.
Yeah, so you know they're always into, you know, cosmonauts have to have more time in space than other people and things like that. So we'll just have to see, it'll be the competing thing of our gateway in orbit around the moon versus whatever they're planning to build. And again, the Lunar Gateway, we have a lot of European support, and Canada and Japan are partnering with us for modules and support. So
Yeah, but it's not necessarily a science station like Russia wants to do with China. It's a step-off position for the research we want to do on the moon and Mars. Eventually we may have some part of habitat there that will house some kind of elements, but that's not its use.
yeah, and the other concern I had was that apparently I just heard that 4 Indian astronauts came back from a year's worth of training in Russia. So, I think with their training there, India could partner more with the Chinese and Russia efforts. So, would have liked to get more people buying into the gateway to kind of make it a little more international. But we'll see how it goes. It's going to be kind of a war. Well, not a war, but I think the one good side of it is it'll keep the American support maybe more behind the gateway than if we didn't have some competition.
Right, exactly. I agree.
So we'll see how it goes. It's coming up on a busy April. I was amazed that we're going to get through the first quarter of the year and not have anybody really launched into space yet. And what's coming up is first thing I think on April 5th, they're going to have to move the Dragon capsule from one docking port to another so that whatever new capsule that comes up there has a cleaner docking path to the space station. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, because I heard the Dragon capsule was letting off on some fire and depressurization emergency signals and kind of raising the blood pressure of some of the astronauts a little bit. But we'll see how that goes. So that's April 5th, that Crew Dragon relocation.
Yeah, I'm
And
getting
then-
anxious for Boeing too. I mean, they keep getting delayed, but at least it's not for technical problems. It's because of logistics.
Yeah, there's so many capsules coming up to let's see, I'll get rid of this. So many capsules coming up to the space station that Boeing's having a hard time getting a slot for their Starliner. So I think Starliner got delayed till May, because then the Soyuz goes up on April 9th, and then on April 22nd we'll have our second launch of 4 people on a Dragon capsule with Crew 2, and that'll be kind of cool, because I think with maybe 6 people there on the Russian Soyuz capsules, we could have 8 people there on the Dragon capsules. We could have 11 to 14 people on the space station. There's not that many sleeping spots,
No.
so maybe they'll have to fight over them a little bit.
Just Velcro yourself to the floor, you'll be fine.
I was thinking more bathroom facilities.
Yeah, boy, that'd be the place to go.
You'd have a countdown timer, find
Yeah.
out you have 45 seconds.
Turn the vacuum on high.
So it looks like April's going to be a real boon for coming and goings on the space station there. So we'll have to see how it goes. To kind of show you a little bit of NASA shooting themselves in the foot a little bit, part of the thing is using the ISS for science development and things like that. And, you know, again, NASA's plan is to kind of hand over a commercial space station to industry, and then it wouldn't be something that NASA would have to fund totally. But NASA, just without any announcement, kind of removed their subsidy of supporting science. And now to send a kilogram of mass to the space station, it's going to cost not $3,000 like it was last month. It's going to cost $20,000. So that's like a 7-fold increase.
Yeah, let's
And-
hope they didn't shoot themselves.
Yeah, and down mass used to cost, to bring something back down out of space on a Dragon capsule, cost $6,000 a kilogram. They raised it to $40,000.
Wow,
So
That's
that was,
crazy.
yeah, that's again over 6, almost 7 times thing.
yeah, it'd be 42. Oh, Jesus.
And
It's kind
listen
of
to
like the
this.
EpiPen.
And
Yeah.
listen to
Yeah,
this.
right.
One hour of
It makes
crew
sense.
time. 1 hour of crew time with an astronaut. NASA was charging companies $40,000. You might think that's pretty high. They raised it now to $130,000 an hour. So, you know, if you sent your biological experiment up to the space station, you know, you have all the costs of launch and things like that, development. And then if the astronaut had to spend an hour operating your experiment, that would cost you $130,000. So
Well, limits your customer base, that's for sure.
Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, part of it is, I think, NASA playing hardball with Congress, because NASA had asked $150 million of support for commercial usage of the space station, and Congress, instead of giving them the $150 million, gave them $17 million. So
Well, they also blew it on, they don't have enough money for the human rated landing system either, and that's supposed to be private. We haven't heard anything about that.
yeah,
So-
I guess, yeah, the HLS, I'll talk to that about a little bit, but yeah, that's true, Dean, too. So what we're going to see, maybe this will get changed fairly quickly with the new administrator, but this came in during the temporary administrator, NASA upping their fees by a factor of 7. Now,
That's insane.
One interesting thing, I know, Dean, you remember the solar array deployments on the space station?
Yeah,
They're gonna replace some of the solar arrays. They've degraded over time.
I think
they're
it's just going to
actually-
add to it.
Yeah, they're gonna roller out these smaller arrays right over the old ones. And the astronauts are doing a bunch of spacewalks to kind of build up some of this trusses that they have to be put on the old things here. And you kind of get an idea of how big these new solar arrays are by all these people standing in front of just one of them.
It's amazing.
And they're going to put 6 of these up, and they roll up like a tube of, well, you could say, what's something you have in your kitchen?
Yeah. They better work better than the Hubble original ones, I'll tell you that.
Right. I still remember the astronauts like doing sewing with the
Oh, yeah.
the old
Cufflinks.
arrays to try to get them to kind of straighten out, and they
Yeah.
kind of get hooked up and all that kind of stuff. So these things actually roll up and can be put in the trunk of a Dragon cargo thing.
That's amazing too.
So I think Dragon can actually bring 2 of these up per launch. So it'll be 3 cargo Dragons to eventually get it all up on orbit here.
Very cool.
And here's a better picture, I think, to show where they're going.
Sounds a
So you
little
could-
dangerous too, doesn't it? To be out there working on that.
Yeah. And these guys do it in 8 8-hour
8
kind of
hours, yeah.
spacewalks. Yeah, so you always worry about one of those. I hear about those cosmic rays. Some of them can have the power of a fastball baseball, and just imagine if they got hit with one of those while they're out there.
Oh, boy.
So scroll the other way, Jim, for a second.
Up or down?
Scroll the other, down, I think you were going, or up. The other way. Yeah, keep going. I think it's the other way.
You know, I
No,
did
the other
go,
way,
I did go to a second,
because it showed the cufflinks that they fixed like 9 years ago. Can you keep? Yeah, just past this one. Go up. Yeah, right there. Stop right there. Or go back.
oh, this video here?
No, up more. One more. Yeah, one more. Keep going,
That's the
keep
top.
going. Oh, hold it right there. There, right there. See the cufflinks on the bottom? Those wires coming out?
Oh, these little white things?
Yeah, that's what
Oh,
solar array from one point to another point. They had to fold it up. And stiction was the main word when they tried to unfurl it because they were sticking together. Because you got wires that are running up the side that you see, you know, right on the right-hand side that it didn't stay taut. So they put, this is actually the boom from the shuttle attached to the boom to the ISS for the foot restraint. So I think it was cumbersome that went out there to reach it. That's the only way they can do it. And they made this cufflink type deal where they went into the holes to tie them together, because you can see the degradation of that when they tried to unfurl it. It stuck and ripped.
Yeah, I know they had a lot of problem with this little lattice thing
Yeah,
uncoiling properly. So the new ones kind of roll out like a
like the
a
Hubble.
sleeping bag.
Yeah,
So we'll see how they do. And then I just wanted to show again, 3 new ones on this side and 3 new ones on this side. They won't put anything in front of these 2 older panels. And they think, you know, it's funny, even though these panels are smaller, technology has come so far that the new panels generate 20 kilowatts. So 6 of them will give 120 kilowatts. And I think the original ones maybe only did 160 kilowatts.
that's amazing. What a change.
So, you know, I think both panel types will be operated. So it'll actually increase the power on the space station to 250 kilowatts. And again, these ones only had a 15-year warranty on them, so they've kind of degraded over time. And I think the old ones are down to maybe only 95 kilowatts coming out from them. So it should set the space station up for operation till, you know, the end of the decade there, if it goes to 2030.
Right.
Yeah, they said the new arrays are 30% efficient versus 14% for the old ones. So
Wow.
over double the efficiency. So for a given area, these things are twice as efficient. And these arrays, these rollout arrays, are also what is going to be used on the lunar gateway around the moon. And Dynetics human landing system on the moon is going to use solar arrays similar to these. So it looks like it's kind of the go-to thing for future solar arrays in space. And the Dean was mentioning about the human landing system. Again, you know, we've got one good news, Dynetics, who seems to have the simplest, at least the most low slung landing system of the 3, has completed a preliminary design review. So, NASA was supposed to be down selecting from 3 to either 1 or 2 of the teams. But NASA said they're going to delay that 2 months. So in February, it might not be till midsummer, something like June or something maybe, that they'll have them. And here's the 3 teams. You've got Dynetics with its Alpaca lander. SpaceX is proposing a version of the Starship that could land on the moon. It actually has thrusters halfway up so that you don't have these engines blowing a dust cloud that might orbit the moon for a few years.
Yeah.
And then the third one is led by Jeff Bezos and the Blue Origin team. And it includes Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. And it's got like a 30-foot ladder to climb up to the habitat area of it. So some people say, what could happen when you have an astronaut in a 200-pound suit trying to navigate a 30-foot ladder to get down to the surface? But, we'll see. And like Dean said, the NASA asked for quite a bit of money from Congress, and Congress, I think, only funded it with about 1/10 of what NASA said they needed. And again, you're never going to get down to the surface of the moon unless, one of these things gets developed. The Orion capsule stays in orbit and can land back in the Earth's ocean, but the Orion capsule can't go down to the surface of the moon.
Yeah, can I throw something in there?
Sure.
Do you remember, I don't know if you saw it, but we might have talked about it on one of our mass, but Dianetics as modular systems that you can pull in and pull out, depending on the mission. You can pull different experiments out. It'll be a rack system for all their electronics, which is kind of cool. They can pull this out, put something else in, and so it's multifunctional for whatever experiments you want to do or wherever you want to visit. Different navigation systems, different tests, different analyzers, different radars. It can all be modularly, just put into the capsule like that from the astronauts on the inside. It's pretty cool, actually. And it actually seems like the most logical one.
Okay. And I'll just add a little bit, the NASA funding, Blue Origin with the national team got 579 million to develop this 3-piece lander. Dynetics only got 253 million, so less than half of what Blue Origin got. And then SpaceX, to develop theirs, they only got 135 million. So you can kind of see that it's not take the pot and divide it by 3. The Blue Origin got over 3 times the money that NASA's giving SpaceX for this. So I have a feeling, I don't think this Starliner thing is going to make it, but I think it's going to come down to Dynetics and the national team. But, the fact that Musk doesn't get money to land on the moon, he's happy. He'll move on and start landing on Mars.
That's what I was just going to say. He doesn't care. He'll go right to Mars.
Yep.
So we'll see. So gonna move on to maybe a few astronomy topics here. Boy, I think we might make the 9:30 timeline here.
Cool.
Yep.
We just had a Apophis flyby. I know you guys have heard about Apophis. I don't know if you guys can see this on your screen, but
Yeah, it looks good.
This little yellow thing coming in from the right is going to be the 2029 Apophis close flyby of Earth. Apophis for a while there was considered the most dangerous asteroid because these blue things are the geosynchronous satellites. So it actually can be coming a little lower than the closest satellites. I think in 2029, it's going to come 19,000 miles away from the surface of the Earth. So, again,
That's close.
scientists don't think it'll hit, but you never know. You
Right.
never know. So it just did a flyby on April 13th of this month, but the distance was much farther. Let's see, what did it say? I think it came by 10 million miles away. So it was like 44 times the distance of the moon this time. But again, Apophis is a big asteroid. It's 1,200 feet in diameter. So it's one that could kind of take out a continent if it ever did hit us. And also the largest asteroid to go by in 2021 just happened. It doesn't have quite the fancy name. It's just 2001 FO32, but it came by at 77,000 miles per hour. So
Wow.
it was really, really booking. So you can imagine something, it's almost Apophis size here at, I've seen different estimates, but it actually is saying it's a little bigger than Apophis at 2,230 feet, 680 meters. But they don't think this one really has an impact risk to Earth. So again, it always seems like the more and more we find of these things, the more and more they're kind of whizzing by our ears.
Right.
So that's, I think we've got to keep our asteroid searching thing here going. So I'm going to skip this exoplanet suitable for atmospheric study thing here. It's just kind of a little bit of a dry article, but that's going to be the bailiwick of the James Webb Space Telescope, but there's also some Earth-based telescopes that are capable. Again, what you would look at the light from the star and exoplanet when the planet kind of moves in front of the star, and you can kind of get a little bit of the starlight going through the exoplanet's atmosphere and try to analyze and select that and see if you can figure out what gases are actually in the atmosphere. So with the new image kind of stabilized big telescopes on Earth, we can do that with the exoplanets that pass in front of the star. And then for the last topic, we had that one thing here where most scientists were predicting a rather calm solar cycle 25 just starting now. And they were only predicting maybe a peak here of 115 sunspots. And this won't happen until August of 2025. But there was this one scientist named McIntosh that was predicting a peak of 233. And his theory was there were 4 intersecting kind of processes happening inside the sun. So his prediction was 230. And if you can look early in the year, the trend was way above, prediction was 4.1 and the monthly value was 34. It was kind of looking like, maybe this guy is right. But if you look at the last 2 months, this month, it's only 21 compared to predicted of 5.
Yeah, I observed the sun last Saturday. I brought all my scopes out just to make sure the optics were okay and made it through the winter and stuff. And it was just like an orange. There was no detail anywhere.
Yeah, I know for solar observers like you, Dean, these kind of weeks cycles we've been having are probably kind of a disappointment.
Yeah,
So
But
the interesting thing is if you ever go to the Space Weather Prediction Center, they have all the cycles. Again, we're coming into 25. They go all the way back to 1750 with cycle 1.
pretty
And
amazing.
yeah, you can look at it. It's funny, kind of in my youth and when I was doing most of my observing in the 60s.
Yeah, me too.
Let's see. There was some, compared to our peak in the 60s here, coming back down in the late 60s, it was a pretty good cycle there. I think we're kind of lucky that this peak wasn't occurring when we were sending the Apollo missions to the moon. That could have been kind of bad news. Apollo kind of occurred through this cycle,
Correct.
but that's still a peak of around 200 compared to only the 115 prediction that this one is going to be. So, the solar filter observing might be a little boring.
So I've got one more topic, if you don't mind. We can finish on that.
I was just going to ask one thing before we got into this.
Sure.
Did anybody see if Silvio tried to join us or not?
I did not
I did
see
not.
anything. No.
Okay. I was just, I was thinking of keeping my eye out for him. And once I get the adrenaline going, I get my blinders on and it's full speed ahead. So what topic did you want to talk to?
I'm surprised we hadn't talked about Arecibo collapse. It's interesting because it's costing $50 million to clean it up.
Oh, jeez.
And a lot of that money is coming from the National Science Foundation that used to run Arecibo. Now they're actually thinking of when the dish is removed from Puerto Rico, Arecibo, that they want to replace it with 50 smaller dishes because the technology is better. And the radio astronomers and even NASA, it's a big hole because, Arecibo was used to find asteroids also and to predict their trajectories and that. So they're actually thinking of replacing the 1,000-foot dish Arecibo antenna with 50 smaller dishes that would have a better frequency and a absolute better intensity to view these objects. And that's in the work. And I think it's going to make it, to tell you the truth. I think they're going to do it.
I think Arecibo was an important spot, because I think the best fallback radio telescope was like Goldstone, and it's communicating with satellites too often that in space probes it's not available to do some of the more astronomy type stuff. So that's a good thing. We did watch the crash of it. They had that drone up there that actually captured the actual big collapse. So I hadn't heard that they're planning to build anything yet. I heard the $50 million to clean up,
Right.
They didn't have $50 million to support it, but I guess we'll have $50 million. To
Right.
clean it.
Yeah, that's an ironic thing. So it's crazy.
Well, I'm wondering if I missed a whole page of topics. I've never finished before my estimated completion. I know I've only done it by 4 minutes, but
Well, I kept my mouth shut. That's why.
Me too. I stopped interrupting you. Yeah.
I wanted to stop my screen share because I don't get to see all you guys when it's up there, but I see all eyeballs here. Nobody's catatonic. So
yeah, no, it was great. A great meeting, great topics, and you did a fine job.
So Jim, everybody, I want to take this time to thank you for our great present. Jim, thank you so much for, again, a wonderful presentation. For viewers watching this on Facebook or YouTube, we do these monthly. And if you have any questions, please let us know and we'll get to them right away. Again, thank you for joining us and enjoying Midwest Space Society and Aerospace Technology Group. Thanks.
excellent.